Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 317 of the Better on Draft podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it. We are here. It is Friday night. I am here with some co-hosts. I've got Wendy over here. Wendy, what are you drinking?
Well, I picked up a couple of 420 releases yesterday, so I have got Supernatural's Passage to Bangkok, and of course the Old Nation Tart Strawberry M43.
Is the Tart Strawberry a 420 release always, or was it just happenstance this year?
The last time I went and picked it up was also on 420, so I'm assuming that it's similar. I'm not sure, though.
Well, Dan, what are you drinking over there?
Man, I need to get some of that beer Wendy's got because it gives me a reason to use the word cock repeatedly on this show without getting
canceled.
Doing anything, but yeah, without getting canceled. Thank you. I've got a what is this? I was gonna say No Excuses, but it's not the Alice in Chains song. No Pressure from Rare Bird. That's what I'm drinking.
Ooh,
Rare Bird. That's not an Arizona beer.
No, that's a Traverse City brewery. I just happened to bring this back with me last week.
How was your journey up to Traverse City last week? What did you hit? What did you like?
I went to a whole two breweries. I went to Right Brain, which is an absolutely amazing brewery if you had never been there, and Rare Bird because it was the only thing open on a Sunday night.
It's always hard to find breweries when you're in a very off time, whether it's like a Sunday night or even a like Friday afternoon. If you have like a half day of work and not every brewery doesn't open until, some open at 4 or 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like stuck there.
A lot of them do now.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame them when with COVID and businesses coming out of COVID, not everyone's going to lunches at sites. So those big business cities like your Detroit, like your Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Traverse City, you lose that lunchtime rush, and therefore it's not feasible to stay open for lunchtime anymore. For a lot of places, lunchtime used to be even a loss leader for restaurants, but now you can't even consider it a loss leader when it's just a complete loss.
Well, I would just like to put a plea out there to everybody to start going to lunch at places because it makes it really hard to day drink during the week if they don't open till 4. I'm just saying.
That's true. But in the state of Michigan, you could utilize the Michigan Brewery Map app, in which you can hit a button that says open now and find every brewery that's close to you that is open right at the time you hit that button.
Just don't forget that you have that filter on when you're looking for a specific brewery.
Honestly, Wendy, you're not the first person that's had an issue with a missing brewery that day. We'll get about a dozen messages throughout the week via email, via people trying to say, hey, you haven't had this brewery, or why isn't this brewery on there, or something like that. I'm like, I'm not trying to upset you in your favorite brewery. I just feel like you have a filter on. And usually after 2 or 3 times of me saying, hey, I think you have a filter on. But I think what's important that I've gotten from all of this is that we are going to potentially get how you have like filters on and there's a little bubble at the top center that says like clear filters. I think that's going to be what we need to build into the map app for the next update. So we will be doing that. If you're here with us live, of course, you're listening either at facebook.com/betterondraft or betterondraft.tv twitch.tv/betterondraft. You could always join us in the chat, talk to us. We do interact with people. This week, our guest did have a last minute cancellation. So I am sorry if you were here for that guest that we pre-promoted. It feels like every time we pre-promote a guest these days, they move their date to another date. But they talked to us and we have a new date ready to go for that. So we will be excited to be chatting with them. But yes, that was last week with Atwater, this week with Alaskan. We're off next week, but we will be back with Bee Nectar. I'm trying to see if it's a trend or if it's a jinx. So we'll be back on the, I believe, Cinco de Mayo. Nope. Cinco
5th.
de Mayo. To chat with Bee Nectar to talk about their hard seltzer program that they just launched, as well as their new brewery program that they just launched, where they're not just brewing on a 1-barrel batch program anymore. They purchased the Wabs brewing system.
Now, are they making Wab beers?
I feel like
there's going
to be a few beers that they're going to. I don't know if they purchase recipes or not, or if they purchase just complete hardware. But I think that's something that we could ask them when they come onto the show. I know they're, doing their technical soft launch of the beer at the Spring Beer Festival in Traverse City, where the Pit Spitters play over at the Traverse City ballpark. So that's where I think everyone's going to get their first chance to get the new Bee Nectar beer. Now, Dan, and I don't know if you ever got...
What is the name of the team?
The Pit Spitters.
Yeah, I was wondering about that too.
What? Oh, man.
Traverse City cherries.
I get it.
When you're eating a cherry, you spit the pit. Yeah, it's definitely a tongue twister when you've had a few too many, but we went to the beer festival last year. It was a great beer festival. It's literally all around the walk around the diamond. Not like on the actual field itself, but like where everyone's kind of sitting and going. So you could literally just keep walking around the diamond, hitting new breweries every single time. So we will be there this year. So go check it out. And of course, the following week, which I believe is the 19th, or the week before is the 19th, which is when the World Expo of Beer will be. Wendy will be there, so make sure to go say hi to Wendy. She might have some free tickets, not free to you, but tickets she might spare if you ask very nicely. Now, we mentioned Bee Nectar, obviously bringing a brand new brewery into light, taking over what the Wab used to be. They do have a name that they're going to be releasing their beer under that I'm not necessarily remembering off the top of my head. But with that in mind, I kind of want to talk to you guys about what you want to see in a brewery. Wendy wanted to bring up a topic of, breweries that you've been to recently and what you liked and what you haven't liked. But as we are in a, post 2020 world, things have kind of changed. We've all gotten a little bit older. So I kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on what you want to see when you go to a brewery these days. And also what you don't want to see anymore. Some of the things can be either, board games. People love them. Some board games. People love the wall chargers at the bar usually is a must for a lot of people that are going around because they're always on their phone. So it always needs to be traveled. But I'm kind of curious what you personally look for when you go to a brewery and what you don't want to see. And if this was Matt Bush, he'd obviously say he doesn't want to see kids. So we'll get that one out of the way. No kids at the brewery. But we'll start. Oh, go on, Dad.
I just want to touch on that really quick. Two of the best breweries I've been to, like in all time, are usually have a ton of kids running around. So I don't know why that bothers him as much, but I think that's a terrible measurement to what you want to see at a brewery, because some of the best breweries are going to be there. Whether it be like a pizza port in San Diego, where, they're there for the pizza and the video games that are there. And they make some of the best beer, not only in California, but in the country. So I guess I just feel like that's a bad measurement that someone would use as far as judging a brewery.
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily agree with it. As somebody who does not have kids, it is very frustrating. It's not kids in a brewery that I have a problem with. It's parents who don't parent their kids in a brewery. That's what I have an issue with. The ones that let them just kind of run wild and do things, or that expect you to temper what you're doing in an adult space because they brought their kids.
Yeah, I don't think I've come across that where someone's like, "Oh, calm down." Like, I feel like if I bring my kids to a brewery, they're teenagers at this point. I'd be like, if I'm bringing my kids to a brewery, their ass is going to get whipped if they're acting out of line for one, and I'm not going to tell anyone else to calm down what they're doing because I know where I'm at.
I think the important thing to signify is that you don't mind kids in the brewery as long as the kids are acting like adults.
No, that's not true, because I don't expect them to act like adults. They are kids. But there's a difference between being a holy terror and acting like a normal kid. there is definitely a difference.
I mean, I feel like I've been a holy terror at some places before, so I can't really say too much.
Yeah, but my parents didn't.
I know I've been.
My parents took me out of the establishment if I was acting like that.
Oh, I mean, I was talking like a week ago or something.
I was talking recently too. I'm like, wait a minute.
I don't think I've ever.
That's on you.
That's fair. I understand the plight of some parents, especially in the modern day and age where every household is a 2-income household. So when you want to go out together, and you can't just leave the kids at home by themselves, and you want to go spend your money on, something local, which you're getting with the beer, the brewery. But I think what the point that Matt always has is that it's always about kids who are being terrors, kids who are, causing not a ruckus, like being kids, but coming up to you and sitting down and talking to you randomly, or playing with things or throwing things that are hitting you while you're sitting down.
Right.
Yeah, Pizza Port, obviously, I've never been there, but I assume the kids are being kids in the arcade, and they're playing arcade games and eating pizza. They're not taking the basketball from the basketball game and throwing it at your beers, trying to knock it down. So,
as funny as that would be, no, I have not witnessed that.
I think that's where a lot of people have the issues with kids, is more so the babysitting of the parents. Like, the parents are using that time to be out, to not pay too much attention to what their kids are doing. And you'll see it probably more on like patios than anything. Because the kids want to be outside and run around and do stuff. Like if you went to like Burt Marshmallow, Rutabaga Farms over in the Petoskey area, like kids are going to run around and go say hi to the animals and do that kind of stuff. But I think just people don't want to be interfered with. And it's not necessarily even kids, just with other people. Like, don't bother me. I'm here by myself, or I'm here with friends.
You can always be at home. If you're there by yourself, like, don't bother me. Like, go home and drink. Like, what the hell? You are in a public place when it comes down to it.
I guess my thing is, don't expect the brewery to entertain your kids. Bring something for them to do if you want to come and have a couple of drinks.
Unless it's the job of the brewery, like Pizza Port, they have an arcade. That's their job's to entertain everyone. Whereas if we went to like North Center, if you're not playing on the shuffleboard table, you're not really doing anything. And that's kind of the thing where if I'm, playing shuffleboard, or I'm playing with my friends or something like that, and all these kids are coming around, messing around with the shuffleboard table, just like knocking the pucks off the table, I'm going to be mad. I'm going to be upset. Like, it's just...
You're going to spank a kid?
No, I'm not going to
spank someone else's kid.
I barely even want to like hit another adult, let alone a kid. Jesus.
Wait, barely? So you do want to hit adults?
Sometimes.
Sometimes I want to. Do I act on that? No.
There's a difference between wanting to and acting on it.
Yeah, like have I gone through the visualization in my head of how the fight will go and how I'll probably lose? Sure. But I don't act on it because I don't want that visualization to come true. I just want to enjoy my goddamn beer. But I mean, let's talk about games. We talked about kids. Pizza Port has an arcade. One Well is known for their pinball, their whole like pinball setup over there. So obviously kids are going to be over there. Are there games you like to see, whether it's, electronic, video, board? There was that one brewery we went to, Dan, that had like the science theme in San Antonio that had N64, I think, playing.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head.
Like, is that something that you want to see at bars, that you want to utilize? Like, for you personally, not even for other people. Like, obviously we could see why Pizza Port does it for other people, but for you, do you want to see board games? You want to see video games? Like, what do you want to see in a brewery?
I prefer board games if it's going to be anything. Like, I always talk about the place with the 80-some taps up the road. They've got several like Super Nintendos and things like that connected. You see people playing them from time to time. I'm not really looking personally to play a video game, especially any retro games, when I'm sitting around getting drunk. I do plenty of that at home already. Board games are fun though, because they're more social. Like there's only so much you can do playing Super Mario World that's really social unless you're just playing with one other person. Board games can get more people involved, so it's a lot more fun. I like to see that kind of thing.
What's a board game you like to play, Dan? I've never actually seen you play a board game.
Come on, who doesn't like Monopoly? It's a pretty great game.
A lot of people.
Operation's an amazing game.
Drunk Operation sounds a lot of fun. All right, you've sold me there.
You can never go wrong with like 52 card pickup either. Like we had plans, if you remember, to like do that on Twitch at one point while drinking. So things like that are great to do.
What about you, Wendy?
My favorite game right now is called Rainbow Pirates. My niece and nephew introduced me to it. Well, it's like this rummy-like game. You have to build like certain sequences, and there's pirates that you can steal different cards from people, and it's a lot of fun. I definitely suggest it. Rainbow Pirates. And then what's the other one? The cat taco cat something.
I thought you were about to say Catan.
No, it's I think it's a card game she's talking about, like a party card game. Okay. Because there's like Exploding Kittens is one, but I think this is a different one.
It's called Taco Cat Goat Cheese Pizza. And it is so funny. And it doesn't matter what age you are. It's funny because you have to say it and you have to pay attention to what cards are being played and you have to say it in that sequence. It's funny. You have to try it.
Yeah, it's one of those drinking party games that a lot of when you're having like a game night, but you probably have too many people over for a game night. So you got to play like Cards Against Humanity or Muffin Time or something like that. For me, we've been playing that's drinking related for a board game itself, Heroes of Barcadia, which is a fun dungeon crawler. But I was explaining it to somebody else where the person, like, it's just dice rolling and react to the dice kind of thing. But your health bar is a pint glass and you start off 12 ounces, which is 60 HP, and you can lose health and gain health and die and respawn with more beer. So it's a fun little game that we've been playing. You can play up to 8 players. But again, you could get like super, kind of like Monopoly. You can get like super serious into it and like do like competitive Monopoly, or you could just kind of like have fun and just kind of like explore and roll dice and drink beer. So, for me, however, this is going to sound weird. I hate arcade games at bars these days, especially if it's like a barcade type place. Like the place under Bobcat Bonnie's in Ypsilanti or the barcades over in Greektown. My issue with them is that because for some reason adults are worse with abusing video game cabinets than kids. And the upkeep does not get done on these games. So when I go in and I want to play something like The Simpsons Arcade, for example, easily a good third of the buttons don't work or don't work well. And you have to like punch them to get them to work. And that's not really helping the games themselves. They're, the cabinets themselves, you're ruining the game, or the joysticks are broken. And they can only go certain directions. So I'm kind of over the whole barcade arcade experience. For me, like,
I agree with you.
Yeah, go on, Dan.
I was going to say, what was the place in Ferndale I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. Embrew. It was good for a minute, but you had the games falling into disrepair pretty quickly. And then it's like you try to play, it's just a waste of money at that point. It just kind of gets old really fast.
Well, there are times where, for people who know me a little bit more personally, like I used to play DDR a lot. Like easily $20 a day I'd feed into a DDR machine, and you'd go to a spot and there'd be times where like the buttons don't work, like one of the buttons don't work. And if you've ever played DDR, like if one button doesn't work, you can't even play the game. So when I play, I want to play and enjoy the actual game. And if the controller's busted or the joystick's busted, I just get so annoyed that there's nothing more to do. So I leave.
So would you play DDR at a brewery?
Yeah. I mean,
that'd be interesting.
if I think in a brewery, you might be more adept to maybe a less physical one, like a Drum Mania, or even the Guitar Hero arcade game, where it's entertaining. People can be around. Because I mean, remember back in the late 2000s when everyone was playing Guitar Hero, Rock Band, and those were party games. People weren't playing board. Everyone was getting together. They were cycling through all the instruments and playing Rock Band and Rock Band 2. And I think those types of games would be good. The issue is that the price point for a lot of those games is super expensive. That nobody could buy their own cabinet, so they have to rent it. And then, of course, they're stuck with Alpha Amusements or whatever organization they're renting it from, in hopes that it gets upkept and good to go. And if you're not a big moneymaker for Alpha Amusements because you only have a handful of arcade games. I mean, back when I worked at Laser Quest, getting someone to come in and fix the arcade games that were broken was such a pain in the ass because sure, we had 5 or 6 cabinets, but we weren't an arcade. So bowling alleys got more, their first service. And then the arcade, like American Fun Center, these places got those before we did. So our games just kind of went to shit all the time. Like if like a basketball broke or something like that, getting a replacement basketball because they weren't like regulation size. So you can't just go to Kmart and buy another one. I used Kmart because they were still open at that time. And that's where we went, which was a mile down the road over in Madison Heights. But like games and stuff, like I enjoy the bigger games every once in a while. So, cornhole, like big Jenga with the big actual like pieces of 2x4.
Having to put it back together after the game's over.
Yeah, that's part of that. Well, the issue is nobody does, so you have to put it together to start the game, and then of course because you put it together, then the next person has to put it together. I've always loved like beer tight, like shuffleboard. I loved playing shuffleboard.
Shuffleboard's fun.
That one bar that was over on like 15 and Grossbeck or something like that we used to go to all the time. They had a full-size shuffleboard. Every time I go to North Center Brewing, I play shuffleboard there. So like cornhole, shuffleboard, those are the kinds of games that I enjoy where, to be honest, you can get in and get out and not feel guilty about leaving. Like if you're playing like a game of Monopoly or something like that, and you're like, 40 minutes in and everyone's still in and people are still buying houses and stuff, like, all right, game's over. Somebody wins, I guess. Whereas cornhole
takes too long.
Cornhole, you're just like, oh, all right. I guess the score is 7-2. Game over. Somebody else wants to play. Also, like those are the types of games that you can cycle in and out so that people can join and people can leave. So that's what I look for when I want to play games at a brewery itself. Wendy, you did mention your favorite taco, pizza, ice cream, banana game.
Well, my favorite is Skippo, but taco, cat, cheese, pizza, something like that. I can't remember it now.
But do you like games at breweries, or you kind of just want to be with yourself or be with your friends and not necessarily play games? Like you're more in the social chatting aspect.
I think it depends on the friends. I love playing games, so anytime we get to play games, I'm happy with it. If I can have beer while I'm doing it, it's even better.
Well, let's talk about the big issue that a lot of breweries do and don't have right now, which is that some breweries don't offer flights. Is offering a flight a necessity these days when you go to a brewery?
Is that becoming a bigger thing? I've been to one brewery that doesn't, but that's about it.
There's a handful. I don't want to,
don't name names.
Names. There's breweries that don't do it at certain times, like Friday, Saturday nights when they're busy as all hell, which is perfectly fine. I completely understand. But there are some where they just don't even have it as a price point. They might offer like 3 to 5 ounce pours as like an option, which you could technically create your own flight. But in reality, you want that like flight experience where you fill it out on the sheet of paper and then they bring it to you in whatever neat little flight carrier that they have. I saw New Holland's flight carrier today. Some of my girlfriend and some of her friends went to New Holland Battle Creek, and that thing looks awesome. So like it's kind of an extra experience, especially if I'm paying a premium on the smaller per ounce, like beer per ounce. So if for me, I don't think I even know the last time I really drank a flight. But what do you go for flights anymore these days? Is flights kind of passe in 2023?
I go for flights still if it's somewhere new. Perfect example. I'm not going to name it. Like, it's a brewery in LA. That's the one I've come across that doesn't do flights. The problem is they have a bunch of barrel-aged beers on tap that I'd like to try, but they won't do a flight. You have to do whatever they're doing, whether it be like a 10 ounce or a 12 ounce. So it means I can't really try several of these. So it's kind of frustrating when you don't have that ability to do it.
That's actually, now that you mention it, the cream ale house we went to in Las Vegas.
Huddle?
Yeah, Huddle. Like, I would be so disappointed if I couldn't try all of the barrel-aged cream ales that they had there, because they wouldn't offer flights, and I would have to get 8 ounce or 10 ounce bottles, or not bottles, but drafts of beer. I mean, that's really a turnoff for me. Like, I want to be able to try all this.
Yeah, if you have 4 barrel-aged beers on tap and I have to get 10 ounces or 12 ounces of each, it's not going to happen. I'd rather get a flight that's going to work out to be like 1 12-ounce pour of one of them and be able to try everything.
Right. Especially at a new brewery.
Yeah.
If it's a brewery that I've been to on a regular basis, chances are I won't get a flight. But for the most part, I think that if they're not offering flights, and I understand why they don't want to offer flights. I understand that it takes longer, that they're not, yeah, we'll just say yes. I get it, but you're missing out on a big group of people that might try something they've never tried before and find they like it and bring other people back.
Yeah, I agree with that.
In the Twitch chat, Bats McGee says several of the breweries I was at in New England last year didn't do flights. Now, when I went to New England a few years ago, this was, 2021, and we were still in the height of COVID and rules and regulations and stuff like that, to where, well, like when we went to the Alchemist, they were doing cans only. I can't really ask for a flight when you're doing cans only. But yeah, I don't recall too many places that offered flights that we could get flights at. There was one that we went to where we didn't realize it was just kind of like a to-go only brewery that was inside what almost looked like a not a loading dock, but a what do you call those places? Like a storage unit. They were like almost brewing in a storage unit. And the great beers, great guys. Like, we bought some stuff to go, but they were like, if you want to try anything, you could try it. But we're like, they weren't a serving place, so I can't be mad that they don't have flights at a non-serving place.
Yeah.
But yeah, there isn't too many flights. But nowadays, I just kind of want to get a beer that looks good to me and move on.
Everywhere I've been that doesn't offer a flight, though, usually will let you sample anything there.
Yeah, I think
usually.
I think every place I've been to has a sample, but sometimes I just want the experience of being able to try a handful of beer, like more than sample, like actually try and drink a handful of beers. But I guess the question is, before we move on, is not having a flight a turn off for a brewery? Like, would you just not go back to that brewery anymore, or is it just whatever?
No. It's not a turnoff for me. I don't care.
No, I'd still go back because I'm sure there's going to be something. Like, if it's good, I'll go back, I guess I should say.
Well, I
if
think
it's
that's
a crappy ass brewery, then probably not.
Well, let's talk about beer real quick. Selection. Obviously, we've had our opinions on beer selections at breweries, as Wendy chuckles because of me.
A little bit.
Dan chuckle. Like, honest to God, I understand when breweries. So we've had 2 major incidents, I guess, quote unquote incidents here at Better on Draft. And I'll take responsibility for both of them because I said both of them. The first one is when I went to Beer Church. If you guys remember years ago, like 6 years ago, I went to Beer Church over in New Buffalo, I believe. And when I went there, they had I think one or zero of their beers on draft. I'm pretty sure it was one. They were a brew pub, so they had other beers on draft. And I made a comment in my review of the beer on Untapped, I think, and I said this was the only beer of theirs that they had on draft, and I don't know if I think I was still rating at that time, so I might have rated it. It wasn't bad. It wasn't a bad beer. But the guy was severely upset. Like, we put all this money into the upgrades and updates and all this stuff, and we just didn't have all that beer. And it was doing tourism season, and there was a lot to add to it that wasn't really added. He called me out for my journalistic integrity, which is obvious. I have none. And that's kind of it. Now, I've had Beer Church afterwards, and their beer is good, and my experience there has been great. But when I go to a brewery, comes a point in time where I feel like you should know when you're running out of beer or not going to have enough beer that you need to brew more. But they were going through other things that I just obviously didn't know. So take that aside. When you go to a brewery and you're expecting beer, like I expect at least, can I say a 60-40 split of pale ale to not pale ale? Is that a fair ask?
That's totally fair. Are you talking pale ale to every other style?
Yes. Yes. So for every 3 IPA, double IPA, triple IPA, hazy IPA, APA.
What? Damn.
Like, thank you, Dan. I want at least 2 beers that aren't, and they can be lagers, pilsners, stouts, porters, ESBs, Hefes, anything. I think a 3-to-2 ratio is more than fair to ask. Now, if you're a site that is known for your beers like Foam is known for their their IPAs and their kettle sours, so you should expect IPAs and kettle sours. Same with like Holmes, you should expect IPAs and Smooge. But if you're just Joe's Brewing Company, I feel like I should expect that. And not have to worry about looking at your tap list. Now, everyone yells at me because I don't look at tap lists. Dan used to agree with me, but now he looks at tap lists. Yeah. Before he goes.
I do now. Yeah, because I don't want to run into what you ran into.
Just don't post about it on Better on Draft Facebook page, and no one will know.
I just don't want to run into that situation. Well, look, guess I'm leaving. Like,
but I mean,
it's funny you mentioned Smooge too. That's popular at other breweries that typically carry other kind of stuff to drink. At least what I saw in Traverse City over the weekend.
Oh yeah, I think the folks over at Holmes are doing so many things right to the amount of beer that they're producing, what they're producing, where they're distributing, and they have caused a lot of hype outside of the state. They are to smoothie sour seltzers what Heady Topper is to New England IPAs or Treehouse or Trillium. But I mean, let's go back to my statement. I want a brewery that has at least 40% beers not IPA. Is that too much? Am I asking for too much?
Not at all. Because think about what you're asking for. You're asking for a Pilsner. You're asking for a lager, an ESB, a red, a brown, a stout, a porter, a Hefe.
One of the 47 other beer options.
Other options.
It can't be that hard to do that. Now, I don't remember if it was one of the breweries you just mentioned, but I'm not going to call names. Number one, I don't remember it. Number two, I don't want to put anyone out there in a bad light. But you remember we had a guest that said, well, we brew these beers because it's the thing everybody wants. It's whatever the newest, greatest thing is. It's like, that's how you don't get new customers.
Right.
So you're chasing, oh, we're going to make 19 IPAs because everyone likes an IPA. It's like, well, no, and I'll never walk in your brewery. Cool. That's fine. I mean, it is no skin off my back. So if you're good with alienating certain customers, But you would think most breweries don't want to alienate everyone and want to be able to get anyone in the door and have something that everyone's going to enjoy.
Well,
Right.
Sorry, Wendy, I'll go to you in just a second. When the New England IPA craze started here in Michigan, and you had like Liberty Street, which launched Soul Geometry, which is probably one of the top beers, or you have Roke that did Flavorful 5, or you have Rochester Mills that did Juice Bigelow. Like, all these breweries made a or two New England IPAs, but still made the rest of their beers. They didn't just make that one beer. And I think that is okay to chase the flavor that is going to get people in the door, that's going to sell well, and that's perfectly fine. But as a person, and I understand that I don't like IPAs, and that's just a me problem and not a everyone else problem. But there are a lot of people like me who will walk in and just be like, how many people every brewer we've talked to, they talk about, or especially a bartender, what's the beer closest to Bud Light?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Like, you can't not have these beers and these options for people to try. Like a wine drinker, you're going to want something sweet. You're going to want something, a little bit more fruity, like, go on, Dan.
Well, the problem is too, these IPAs, and the people from The Alchemist actually brought this up. Like, those beers like blow out your taste buds.
Oh yeah.
So you drink a couple of those, you can't taste anything else. So even if you're going to something malty at that point, it's like, you got to have a variety. Like, that's going to get the most customers in the door, no matter what. Most of these breweries are like, I'll have 20 IPAs and nothing else. Like, that's just not the best way to do it.
If you're known for that style, you should you should have other styles available.
But
well, that's the thing is that I went to Foam. Foam had a one beer that wasn't a kettle sour or IPA, which was the lager, which was great. But that's what Foam is known for. When you go to Holmes, they have the coffee cream ale, I think is their one major beer that's not in their normal portfolio. Amazing beer. And I think going there and understanding, because we've all talked about it and we kind of tiptoed around it, but I went to Maine Beer Co., but I also loved King Titus, Mean Old Tom, like all of these beers that they've distroed that were not IPAs. And I was just kind of disappointed when I couldn't get one of those beers or try something else that they would offer. And again, that's a me problem. And
which I think is funny, because when I went to Maine Beer Company, there was more than just New England IPAs on tap.
I don't think they do too many New Englands. They do a lot of IPAs and doubles. But go on, Dan.
I was going to say, think of The Alchemist too. The guy literally created New England IPAs, and he sent us one of the best stouts I've ever had.
Oh, Luscious?
And I don't know if don't know if you guys have tried that yet.
It's delicious.
No way that's like whatever it was, 9-10%, whatever it is. He makes a black lager. Like, they make other beers, so it's not hard to have stuff for other people outside of those million different IPAs out there.
Their light lager was one of the best beers I had on that entire trip when I was in the New England area. But Wendy, I think you had something to say and I cut you off.
Oh, it was just that even if you're known for that, you still need to have some type of variety, because not everybody's going to like that style, and they're going to bring their friends with them, and their friends are going to go and tell people, oh, I don't want to go back there because they only have this.
Yeah, that's the thing for me is that if I go into one of those sites and that's what I see, now it's just like, well, I'm probably just not going to go back anymore. Like, my friends will be like, hey, I'm going up to this, XYZ brewery. And I'll just be like, I really don't like, there's a brewery in Michigan that every single time that I've been there, every single time their beers tasted like butter. And I'm like, I don't want to go back there.
You don't want the butter beer?
No. and that's like, they're a brew pub that has other beers too, and bottles. So technically I could go drink something else in a bottle that's going to be perfectly fine. But if they can't get their beer right, I don't know how they're keeping their beer, let alone serving it. Right. Catching up on the chat over on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/better on draft. Gary talking about flights. It says it's not a turn off when he goes to flights. He'll just get a small pour or a half pour, which I've been known, especially if I'm doing like a beer trip, I will pay like a full pour price to just ask for a half pour, just so I can pace myself.
Do a lot of places out there do half pours? Out here, you can get a half pour. Most places will do it. Is that not a thing? Out in Michigan or where you're at?
It kind of yeah, it all depends on the site itself. I think the important thing is that if the person on the point of sale system has the ability to charge you for a half pour, because I don't even mind paying a premium on a half pour. Like if it's an $8 pint and you're offering me an 8 ounce for $5, great. I'm going to pay the $5 for an 8 ounce. And I was just using easy numbers, by the way. I don't know what kind of imaginary beer this is in the first place.
We are starting to see it more, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, especially as the drinking culture is changing around us, people are drinking not drinking less, drinking smarter, I think is the more apropos word. Like they're still probably going hard at home like early COVID days. But out and about, like I think a lot of people just aren't drinking that much when they're out anymore because just as the world changed. Places aren't open until 2 a.m. anymore. Places aren't open, for lunch, as we talked about earlier, anymore. So they're not out there slamming beers all day and all night. They're just kind of having their 1 or 2 beers and going home. Now, for me, like when Dan and we did our nice little trip over in Texas and we hit up, former guests Jester King and Live Oak and Shine, like these places were so spread out that you could have a beer and drive 45 minutes and have a beer. And I wasn't, Dan was drinking the heavy stuff. I was drinking the ESBs.
I didn't have to drive.
Yeah, you didn't have to drive. So I think that's the more important thing. But that's where I'm going to go to next is that the importance that I put on so many breweries is that they need to put the ABVs of every single beer everywhere in their tap room. I want to see it on the board. I want to see it on the menu. I want to see it when I ask the waitress. She can flip to a page on her little notepad that says, "Hey, what's the ABV of this beer?" I do not like that some breweries are still hiding that information. And that this not just for breweries. I want this for bars, restaurants, everywhere.
That's fair.
Agreed.
I don't really see that breweries. I'm interested if that's a regular thing, but I'd say restaurants, you're never going to know, especially if it's like all of a sudden they have something barrel aged on tap. It doesn't tell you what the percentage is or the pour size or anything about it.
Yeah, that's the worst is when you're going in and you don't understand what the pour size is, what the ABV is. Sure, you might be able to guess for the style, but if it's a stout, like a stout can range anywhere from 5 to 9 just before it even gets barrel aged. An IPA can run from 5 to 9. Like there's so many different styles of beer that have such a wide variety of ABV that I feel like it's a disservice to the customer when you don't put the ABV in there anymore. Before we keep going, back in the chat, twitch.tv /Better on Draft. Bats McGee says at Treehouse they have like 52 IPAs, but they actually have a good selection of other styles. See,
is that Crooked Tree?
No, this is over in Mass. No, like that's the thing. I don't care if you have 52 IPAs. Give me 30 not IPAs. Hell, give me 5 not IPAs at that point.
Right.
Honestly, I'm not even looking for a 60-40 split. I just want, give me 5 not IPAs and the rest can be IPAs. I don't care. Just give me the ability. Like, if you have a flight of 6, I want 6 non-IPA styles.
6 different beers, not 6 different IPAs that all taste exactly the same.
I don't even need 6 non-IPA styles. I would like to have 5 and then add an IPA in there.
That's all you, Wendy, not for me. No.
It took a lot of very bad IPAs. They weren't bad IPAs. They just weren't my thing. But it took trying a lot of IPAs to get me to the point where I like IPAs.
Now, on the Facebook page, Gary, who's out drinking in Savannah right now, says, we drink all day long plus to-go cups. Which I think brings me to my next question is that when you're going to a brewery, do you like to go to a spot where you can hit up multiple breweries within non-driving distance? And what I mean by non-driving distance is you can walk, you can take a bird, a little Lime scooter, maybe even the Uber trips are pretty short and quick. But is that important to you when you're going to a brewery or when you're trying to plan a trip to a brewery?
Before I answer that question, I would like to know if you guys actually use the little scooters.
Oh, hell yeah.
Because
they're fun as hell.
I would love a TikTok of you guys on the little scooters the next time you're together.
Dan and I have actually,
absolutely.
This is going to sound like really, really creepy. Dan and I have rode scooters together a handful of times. We took public transpo to Tempe before we went to the brewery. What's the name of the brewery, Dan?
That was, where did we go?
Dolphin Diver.
Yeah. Shit, it is escaping me. But yeah, we took the light rail from my place, which was in Tempe, just outside of downtown. I was more in the college area. We
got off the light rail, we grabbed 2 scooters, and we took scooters all the way to the bar. And then the second time, from my apartment in Detroit, we took scooters all the way to Eastern Market for the Fall Beer Festival.
For the Fall Beer Festival. It was the Shop, by the way.
The Shop Beer Co.
Amazing coffee brown ale over there.
So, I've broken both of my arms, so my friends don't let me get on scooters.
I mean, that's fair. That's definitely fair.
Here's my regular go-to. This is not beer related, so we'll just make it quick. The Coyotes moved to Tempe this year. Every time I go to a game, which is quite often, park the car downtown, not too far from the Shop or where we took the light rail to, and ride a bird over to the arena. I mean, that's my normal heading over to the game. It saves a ton of money and it's fun.
That's what I tell people when they go downtown, like, go park over by my old apartment. Like, it's over by Eastern Market, Lafayette Square. It's not a crazy spot. And you can grab a bird or lime and be in downtown in just a few minutes and you're good to go. I mean, it's a quick walk anyways to downtown, so you can get there pretty fast, but you can walk from my apartment to my old apartment to Ford Field, LCA, Tiger Stadium, 10 minutes. And you could park on the street for free away from where everyone is. So there's not that many
easy
people.
To get out.
Exactly. Easy to get out. Yeah. That's the important thing. But Wendy, I mean, you're probably, I mean, Dan's getting up there with all these trips to San Diego and LA and stuff, but you're the beer traveler of the group. What do you say?
Yes, I would prefer it if I could go to hit a few stops very close to each other. I liked it in my recent trip to Iowa. I was able to hit 3 breweries in Decorah, and then I had to drive like 3 hours over to Iowa City, and those were a little bit farther apart. But I was still able to hit 2 or 3 breweries in a night before I called it a night, I guess. I was there in the middle of the week though, so their hours they closed a lot earlier than I expected. I don't know why I expected that, because I mean, our breweries here close earlier now too than they used to. So I don't mind if we have to travel, but I would prefer it if when I pick a travel destination, I pick something that I know there's going to be breweries around me I can go to.
What, to walk to, or a short Uber trip?
Yeah. Yes. I don't mind the walk-in, but sometimes it's definitely an Uber trip. I remember I was in Washington, D.C. one time. We had done a couple of tours. We did a tour of the Mint there. And when we got out, my friend was like, we were looking for a brewery, and she's like, oh no, we're going to take an Uber. And it was literally like a block and a half. I was like, I'm a little embarrassed about that one.
It took the Uber a lot longer to get there than you could have walked.
We waited longer for the Uber than we were in it. So we definitely spend more time looking at that now, but it's happened. I'm not going to lie.
When I make trips, I have to do either one or the other. Like, if the breweries need to be close by, or they need to be a decent length apart so that I can be safe while I'm out there and driving. So like I always talk about the trip that I made back in, I want to say it was 2020, when like restaurants kind of just like reopened and it was the summer and we hit places like Meckley's and Blue Skies and Tecumseh and a few other different breweries in this like area here over by the Speedway. Over I was about to say Boardwalk, Broadway. What's the name of this?
Like the gas station? Are you talking about Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, yeah, Motor City Speedway. Thank you. So like those are the great types of trips that I always enjoy because you can kind of spend an entire day, not get drunk, go to a bunch of different places. Whereas I feel like I go a little bit harder when the breweries, like when I went to Asheville, and I only hit up like a third of the breweries and you still walked from each one. And that was the day that I was hanging out with that Diageo rep. So everything was on Guinness that day. And just, I don't know, like some of those days I don't like the ability to have those breweries so close because I think I abuse it a little too much.
I'll agree with you on that. I don't know where you went when you were in the Albuquerque area, but very similar setup. Some of them, especially if you're downtown, are close walking distance, but the others are very close Uber drives. So there isn't a whole lot of, being able to sober up. It's exactly what you're talking about with abusing it, but that can be fun too. So
when
it is what it is.
When we hit Albuquerque and Santa Fe, we definitely spread out all the brewery trips. Because there were so many other things that we wanted to do. The trip was for my girlfriend, not for me. So it was not just straight brewery hopping.
She's a good girlfriend.
So we like.
Well, she was keeping him out of breweries. Hold on, is she?
No, she let him go to breweries, even though the trip was for her.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, I mean, she loves going and trying new beers and stuff, and she more loves the breweries that have spirits because then she wants to try the different cocktails that everyone comes up with. She's a cocktail hunter.
That was hard for me over at Sanctuary because I wanted to try all their spirits, and I had to drive home. So,
well. That's what she was asking me, like, what is, because they were going to Battle Creek for the weekend, and she's like, what's a brewery over there? And I'm like, I'm trying to, like, I know Hand Map's over there, and which was a great brewery, but I'm like, I'm trying to remember if Hand Map has spirits. And I'm trying to just
tell her to pull up the Michigan Brewery map app?
Honest to God, that's what I did. Is I pulled up the Michigan Brewery map app, and I'm like, oh my God, New Holland just opened it up, and we went to New Holland back in 2019 over in Holland. That the actual original site, and she remembered the different spirits we had there. I was still on full keto, so I was drinking the whiskeys. And she's like, great, that's awesome. So that's where they went because of that. So the Michigan Brewery map app, thanks for the nice plug, Dan.
My friends, I'm pretty sure, think that it's funny that I bring that up all the time, but I really do use it all the time.
So we're nearing the end, and we've kind of talked about what we want to see in a brewery. Is there something that is a turnoff when you go to a brewery? Something where, other than like the tap list that we talked, the things that we talked about, is there like one where you kind of like walk in, realize what's going on, and just walk right back out?
It's a loaded question.
We don't have to call anything out. I mean, it could be, the fact that it's patio only seating. I mean, Jester King, when we went to Jester King and there was no indoor seating, it was god awful cold.
It was an outside brewery. Yeah, that's right.
Like
we were sitting under the heater.
Yeah, like that's a thing where I'd be like, all right, I'm not coming back again until it's nicer outside. Like it doesn't have to be or we talked about how every time I tried a beer and the beer was infected and just not that good. I mean, obviously you're not going to go back for beer. It could be just the size. Maybe it's too small. And it's always crowded and always packed. And you're like, I am not going to even bother trying anymore. Maybe like there are plenty of reasons why you go to a brewery that it's not for you. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing, but it's just not for you.
I'll put this out there and we're going to keep it really, really high level. If you're a brewery regularly holding political events, I'm probably not coming in. And that doesn't matter what political event it is, because there's enough of that crap in the world I don't need it at the brewery too, no matter what kind of events going on.
Are you talking like, I want to clarify, because I feel like there's two different types of political events. There's rallies, and then there's meet your local representative. He's going to be here drinking beers for a few hours. Like I got Debbie Dingle over here, and I think she was over at Arbor Brewing.
So that doesn't bother me. It's the rallies and that kind of thing. Just keep it out of the damn. Like, I want to come, like, sit down and enjoy a beer. I don't need to be hounded about certain political thoughts on either side.
No speeches.
Yeah.
Like, if they're just having beers and people are there wanting to meet their local representative and ask them questions and stuff off to the side.
That's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
I felt like that was where you were going with that, but I'm like, let's.
Yeah. That's sorry. It wasn't as clear, but yeah.
Because I was
rally or like, just leave it at the door.
Personally, there's the super local rep, the state house rep here in Ypsilanti was like, hey, I'm gonna be at not Townies, 734. If you want to come hang out and have a beer and ask me a question, great. If not, all right. Like, it was the loosest invite ever I got in a mailer. Just like, I'm gonna be here whether you're there or not.
Was it handwritten?
I think it's awesome though, because it means they're supporting their constituents.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that'd be pretty awful if they were taking it to, hey, I'm going to be over at Founders in Detroit, even though I'm an Ypsilanti rep.
But yeah, if you're holding a political rally of some sort and trying to collect donations for anything, no matter what the view is, like, get it out of there. There's better places to do that at.
What about you, Wendy? Do you have a make you turn right around?
I'm not even going to say horrible service. I'm going to say anywhere that I have to work super hard to get my server's attention.
I mean, poor service
is a good one.
I mean, there's a difference between like when you're busy and when they just don't care, and you can tell. It annoys the crap out of me when there's only 8 people in the brewery and they're spending so much time talking to their friends, they can't take care of the customers that have come in. And I really, I'm trying to think of the way to put this properly. Yeah, that's my big thing.
No, that's perfectly understandable.
It's bad service. Like, I understand when people are busy, and that I don't mind.
You could see when a server is careless versus working their ass off and just can't get to you.
Yes.
Like, there's a complete difference. Like, I remember that first day that we did the BCBS release at 3 Nicks, and it was one person working the entire place, and she busted her ass, and we never felt neglected either.
It was like a football Sunday too. Yeah, every time we go there, it's usually.
But there was
that we would do that.
I mean, Matt's told a story a bunch of times on the show when they went to Shipwreck, and it was him, Pipe and Brock. I think Brigham was there, and Commodore Spencer over at Dragonmead went over there and just got the worst service in the world. Like, service is definitely important. I think for me, I think it ties into the service, but if it's a brewery and the servers don't know anything about the beer.
That was my next point.
That happens too, yeah.
It drives me insane.
I don't need you to know about the food menu. I don't need you to care about the food menu. I need you to tell me about the beer. And I don't need you to tell me at what degree Plato the beer came out or what I don't need that. Just, what is it? Like, if I have to ask we have this brand new beer, it's called the Misery Loves Company beer. Well, that doesn't tell you shit. It just says it's Misery Loves Company. Oh yeah, what kind of beer is it? Let me find out.
Yeah, I don't know.
And for God's sakes, if somebody asks you what your favorite beer is, just tell them.
Yeah, make something up.
Pick a beer and tell them. If you don't like it, just tell them. You don't have to say, well, what kind of beer do you like? I like all kinds of beers. I want to know what beer you like.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I'll tell this real quick before we head off to take a break before the news. when I was pouring at Brewsology for Arctic Circle, and everyone would come and be like, "What's your favorite beer?" And I literally every time poured him the beer that we served the least that night. That's all I did.
I like that.
That's all I did.
like that.
They had
This one.
They had like a pineapple smoothie sour and a cider and a barrel aged beer and a porter. So those first 3 beers went really fast. And so like every single time, give me something. Porter. Boom. Oh, you don't have anything light? I'm like, the porter's light. Boom. And they'll look at it and be like, this is dark as all hell. I'm like, trust me, it's light. It doesn't look light, but it tastes light. And that's what matters. But yeah, that's going to do it. Episode 317. Join us in the comments over at facebook.com/betterondraft. Come find this post. Tell us what you love, what you want to see in a brewery, what you don't want to see in a brewery. Like us on all of our social medias. That's Better on Draft on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, everything else. It's just at Better on Draft. And no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Cheers.